Energía baja, falta de concentración, niebla mental. You might be dehydrated. Gatorade Zero Powders han sido diseñados científicamente para ayudarte a mejorar el balance de hidratación en el cuerpo. Hechos con la mezcla número 1 de electrolitos, sin colores ni sabores artificiales. Shop now online or at retailers nationwide. Gatorade hydrates better than water. Is it in you? Signos de dehidratación leve y moderada. Consulta a tu médico si los síntomas persisten.
Pros, find the right flooring for the job in Lowe's newly redesigned flooring showroom. Shop our expanded assortment of trusted brands and get up to 35% off style selections, Stainmaster, and Stainmaster Pet Protect Special Order Carpet. And while you're here, save $100 on a DeWalt 20-volt max 6-amp-hour 2-pack of batteries, now just $179. Get more of what you need faster and save more where it counts from the ground up. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 8/26 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
So let's talk about what it means to be an adult. Guys, welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity, and up your you. I'm your host, Isaiah, and we're just moving, y'all. We're life at, I think, is this, I wrote an article about relationships, and, when I listen to the world, relationships is usually at the forefront of everybody's topic. Relationships, being successful, work, money, relationships, what's the meaning to life, money, success, relationships. And a lot of times we hear, I think, more about romantic relationships than, relationships as a whole, as a concept, as a practice, as an entity. Especially friendship, which is what I typically accidentally center on because of how much exists in that space that we don't really tackle or prioritize. But there's a lot of telling information in our friendships. You could tell a lot about a person by how they treat their friends. You could tell a lot about their value system. You can tell a lot about how they invest. You can tell a lot about their priorities. You can tell a lot about their emotional maturity, character development, all those things. But I think more than anything, I've learned what consideration actually means. I feel like buzzwords nowadays is being an adult, being grown, being busy. And I think what really has started to reveal someone's level of, relational hygiene, but also emotional IQ or just maturity as an adult, and not just somebody who got older, is how they consider other people. Now, granted, there are people who consider, how does this relationship benefit me, right? Because we hear the thing of, you are a reflection of the 5 people you hang around. So a lot of times you'll recognize that there are certain people who want to be around successful people, to glean off of them. What can I get from this person in order for me to be a more attractive or desirable person? Versus, hey, do these relationships reflect my character and how I show up in the world? Character development being a big thing. And there's a difference between investing in relationships and your relationships being incentives, right? Very incentivized practices. And, most people may not readily admit that. They may not even realize that's how they navigate. But we know what we're doing, right? We know who we are choosing and why and when. It's not just this thing that we're oblivious to. As people, I think we want to feel good.
Energía baja, falta de concentración, niebla mental. You might be dehydrated. Gatorade Zero Powders han sido diseñados científicamente para ayudarte a mejorar el balance de hidratación en el cuerpo. Hechos con la mezcla número 1 de electrolitos, sin colores ni sabores artificiales. Shop now online or at retailers nationwide. Gatorade hydrates better than water. Is it in you? Signos de dehidratación leve y moderada. Consulta a tu médico si los síntomas persisten.
Pros, find the right flooring for the job in Lowe's newly redesigned flooring showroom. Shop our expanded assortment of trusted brands and get up to 35% off style selections, Stainmaster, and Stainmaster Pet Protect Special Order Carpet. And while you're here, save $100 on the DeWalt 20-volt max 6-amp-hour 2-pack of batteries. Now just $179. Get more of what you need faster and save more where it counts from the ground up. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 8/26 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Naturally, we are always seeking out some kind of euphoria. We are always looking to feel good about ourselves. We are looking to feel good about the choices and decisions that we make. And we are also looking to feel good and justified when we are not making the best choices, when we are not treating people in the best way either. So typically we do not want to be challenged. And I think consideration is a good litmus test in terms of somebody's ability to be challenged outside of their convenience, right? How do you consider other people? And something that's uncomfortable for a lot of people to hear, especially if they consider themselves like an empath, or I'm a caretaker, or, you know, martyrdom being a part of their practice, is that's not really consideration for other people, right? Because the obvious is selfish people, right? They're inconsiderate. Like, we can say that somebody who's self-centered, somebody who only does things in ways that they want to do, or have things when it works for them, they're blatantly inconsiderate. It's obvious, like you clock it. But when we are only loving people in ways that we want to be loved, it's not really consideration, right? And when we are not showing up for people in ways that we don't necessarily need to be shown up for, because that's not how we operate, that's also not consideration, right? That's why low maintenance is a funny thing. A lot of times people talk about, you know, I love low maintenance relationships, and the subtext of what they're saying in low maintenance means that I love people that I don't have to maintain, but I love those same people because they're willing to maintain this relationship for me, or they're willing to meet my needs when it works for me, right? If there's a contingency in how I function when it comes to other people versus how I function when it comes to other people taking care of me. And I think, you know, one of the things I've understood is that a lot of times we are not looking for relationships as much as we say we are. We're looking for reward systems, you know, breathing reward systems. And this is why I think low maintenance is such a throwaway and also very strategic in terms of how we say it, because, you know, we can tell somebody that we prefer low maintenance, but it's like, what does that actually mean when you break it down? We all need to be maintained, right? But is low maintenance an argument that somebody's needs not being on your timetable makes them now high maintenance, makes them needy, makes them demanding, or a breach of your autonomy or your independence or your boundaries? Because we all have the same needs and everybody wants to feel like they matter. So when do other people in our lives matter to us, right? And that's what being in a relationship with other people means, especially in a healthy way, right? That's why I say, you know, people pleasing, martyrdom, you know, over functioning, treating people how you want to be treated is not necessarily the golden rule anymore, because sometimes you may be dismissing what somebody actually needs. And treating people how you want to be treated goes both ways. You know, the person that's like, well, I don't need somebody to call me, or I don't need somebody to wish me a happy birthday. Okay, that's you. But what about the people you're in a relationship with who desire that, right? Is that something that feels like too much of a burden for you to participate in? And if so, then what is the point of the relationship that you have with that person? Because at the end of the day, we stay in connection for one reason or another. And then we have to be a little bit more honest about, well, is this relationship incentivized, right? I get to shame this person out of their needs when it comes to me, but they also show up for me in such a way when I need it. And how do we make that work, right? Sometimes what people call boundaries is emotionally controlling a relationship, being emotionally manipulative, being very strategic, right? I make my needs sound reasonable and realistic, and I make yours sound unreasonable and also impossible to meet. And it's the same need, right, being considered, but it's just at an inconvenient time, right? Our ability to be present when we want something is not our willingness to be present when we have to now show up. And this is why I think relationships as a whole is such an intricate dance in terms of just like, how do we move with each other, right? Because somebody may get frustrated that, hey, you know, I'm such a giver, I show up for everybody and no one ever shows up for me. And it's like, well, what are you doing that for? And a lot of times they will say, well, yeah, I never had anybody show up for me, so I'm making sure I do it for everybody else. Okay, that's noble in a way, but are you recognizing that you may be creating a deficit for yourself where people may not appreciate how you show up? And to continue to force that in the hopes that it changes them or you win them over or that they love you in ways that other people may have failed you, right? It's strategic. It's also self-centered. Because now you are requiring other people to do for you what you're doing for them in a quid pro quo way. Now, this isn't to say that sometimes you will exist in relationships and somebody seems to never have a need, right? And that's BS. Because they receive from you. They're not rejecting certain things that you offer up, right? Their lives are in somewhat improving. Okay, but they say they don't have a need. It's like, no, they probably do. They just are too fearful to ask for it. That's one thing. But to constantly love people in the ways that you wish you were loved is dismissing how a person may need to be cared for. Sometimes not caring for people in the ways that you want to be cared for is healthy. Why? Because it prevents you from being taken for granted, taken advantage of, feeling small, insecure, and imbalances in a relationship. Right? Sometimes we have to allow people to experience their consequences, right? And also allow ourselves to own up to our own consequences, right? It's not always about a good or bad, who's better. And then you got to ask yourself if you are caring about people and creating a ledger of how you're caring for them. And that's the thing too, sometimes people can manipulate that situation. Well, I didn't ask you to do all these things. It's like, no, but you probably didn't refuse them either. And there's a difference between keeping score, right? I've noticed that some people, they posture as being kind. You know, they record themselves doing a good deed so they could go back and tell everybody else what they did. Or, you know, they do certain things for people so they can go back and talk about how altruistic they were. And that's disingenuous, right? That's scorekeeping. But there's a difference between keeping score and pattern recognition, right? If somebody recognizes that, man, I realize this relationship is definitely one-sided. And if I look at certain points or certain dynamics, certain occurrences, and I realize that it's always been me showing up and it's always been this person receiving, then that's information. See, it's one thing for somebody to say, well, I didn't ask for those things, and hey, maybe this isn't a relationship that works, and they dip out. It's another thing for somebody to say, hey, well, I didn't ask for those things after I've utilized everything that you were willing to give me, and I thought it was just you being generous. Right? People find different ways to not participate in a relationship when it comes time for them to provide, to care, to consider, right? To be inconvenienced. Now there's all the strategy, the semantics of what is appropriate and not having expectations when you give to people. The thing when we're in interpersonal relationships, that is a contract that we sign. Like, hey, in some way, shape, or form, I am responsible for you, and you are responsible for me. Because we're no longer strangers. We're committing to a different level of familiarity, right? We're committing to a different level of connection. And the thing about it is this, the only people who are willing to play semantics about that are people who are trying to manipulate the relationship to their favor. So you have the people who are people pleasing and they become resentful. And it's like, well, why don't you have boundaries and why are you still showing up? Well, because that's just how I love, right? But to be loving means to also be aware of self-abandonment. To be honest about what you're doing and why, right? And to genuinely be autonomous or, want independence and you're busy and having boundaries means to also be considerate of other people and take care of them too, right? Not dismissive, not hypercritical, not gaslighting people out of their needs because you don't want to provide now. And again, this is why I say relationships in themselves are so intricate, because everyone wants to feel good about what they are doing and how they are perceived. But how much work are we doing to actually participate in our relationships in a healthy way? And consideration is such this word that I keep coming back to, because consideration is not just about acts of service, right? Consideration is emotional regulation. Consideration is being honest about what your pursuit is in the relationship with another person, right? Consideration is thinking about, how will my actions impact this person? Consideration is anticipation, right? If you're the type of person that says, well, I don't help people until they tell me what they need, and that's always your mode of operation, where you are never really proactive, then that goes to show you are not really existing in relationships outside of how it benefits and conveniences you. Because sometimes it is vulnerable to say, hey, what is it that you need? And then you have to commit to it, because then you got to ask yourself, am I really asking because I want to show up? Or does it just sound nice and I really hope that they don't really say that they have a need of me, right? Or I don't want to be bothered until I want to be bothered. And what does that look like? Consideration is so many things outside of treating people how we ourselves want to be treated. And I think that is so important and crucial to understand. And it may feel uncomfortable, right? When somebody does say, hey, yeah, I am not receiving, the way you think you're caring for me is not really how I receive care. And it doesn't mean that you also dismiss how somebody's willing to show up for you, right? Because that too is intricate, right? If every time somebody is willing to show up and treat us properly, right? Properly being healthy and intentional, right? And considerate, and we throw that away, then that person eventually stops showing up, rightfully so. There's a difference between somebody trying to force feed you something that they want you to have versus somebody who's really trying to show you a gesture and be like, hey, I thought of you. Hey, I wanted you to have this. Hey, I want to take care of you in this way, shape, or form. And how do you treat that person? How do you treat what they do? Right? There's so many layers to how we show up. And this is why when a lot of people say that they're adults, I wonder what that means sometimes. Because to be an adult means to be very aware of how you function and how you treat other people. And a lot of times we don't have the emotional dexterity or relational muscles to really properly handle other people with the care that they deserve, right? We can be very self-oriented, very self-referenced. I only do things that make me feel good, right? And sometimes reaching out to a person might be inconvenience to you, but it may be an investment in intimacy in that relationship where somebody else feels cared for. And again, it goes back to the simple fact that everybody you meet wants to feel like they matter to the people that they matter to. And that's the thing. Sometimes you may be showing up for people who may not value what you give them, but they value it from somebody else. The reason why is because of their value system. They value these people, whether it's a superficial thing, whether it's more of an emotional tie, whether it's familiar to what they have been brought up in, right? Trauma plays a history too, family dynamics, right? That all plays into why relationships themselves are not just this cut and dry thing that we hear on social media, okay? There's so much going on under it. And to consider a person means to think about them outside of just your needs. So wherever you exist in your relationship dynamic, if you are a very self-centered person, well, it becomes very evident that you are inconsiderate. But on the other side of that, if you're the person that's always wanting to give to people and love them in the ways that you wish you were loved, you got to understand that consideration is not just what you were willing to do and what you want to give people because you didn't have it. Consideration is making sure that that other person is a participant in the relationship too. Because otherwise, we are just in relationships with ourselves and we have an audience, right? We have seat fillers. We have players in our narrative. And that's not kind. To be in a relationship means that the other person and you are both being responsible for each other in the healthiest way possible. And sometimes you get to consider, oh, maybe this relationship doesn't work because we are not willing to compromise that much, right? Our value systems are so vastly different that it just doesn't work. That's understandable too.
Energía baja, falta de concentración, niebla mental. You might be dehydrated. Gatorade Zero Powders han sido diseñados científicamente para ayudarte a mejorar el balance de hidratación en el cuerpo. Hechos con la mezcla número 1 de electrolitos sin colores ni sabores artificiales. Shop now online or at retailers nationwide. Gatorade hydrates better than water. Is it in you? Signos de dehidratación leve y moderada. Consulta a tu médico si los síntomas persisten.
Pros, find the right flooring for the job in Lowe's newly redesigned flooring showroom. Shop our expanded assortment of trusted brands and get up to 35% off style selections, Stainmaster, and Stainmaster Pet Protect Special Order Carpet. And while you're here, save $100 on a DeWalt 20-volt max 6-amp-hour 2-pack of batteries. Now just $179. Get more of what you need faster and save more where it counts from the ground up. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 8/26 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
So, really think about what it means to consider other people. Really think about what it means to be considered. Because it also means speaking up. Hey, this is how I like to be cared for. This is how I don't like to be cared for. These are things, you know what, I can start to acclimate because I'm not used to being cared for like this, but I do realize the discomfort that I'm feeling is not because these things are bad, it's just different. And that's growth, right? Sometimes we are so eager to use what we know versus grow past it because we say we want these new and fulfilling relationships, but we're still using old archaic ways of interacting with each other. You know, too often everybody wants to sustain their autonomy and their independence, but we still want these deep, rich connections. Well, if you're not participating, you are going to get what you're putting out. And again, participation does not mean over-functioning because you're going to get what you were putting out, all right? So it's just really something to think about in terms of the intricacies of what it means to consider other people, because sometimes it's not just doing for people what you would want done for you. It's doing what's necessary. It's doing what's right. And if you're a self-centered person and people only seem to operate on your terms, then you got to understand no one's obligated to a relationship with you, especially if the only reason why they are there is to serve you. That's not kind. That's not care. That's also not connection. It's convenience. So think about it. What does it mean to consider other people? What does it mean to be considered? And how far are you willing to go past what you know to learn something different about yourself and others? Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other.
Booking.com is the easiest way from a day surrounded by noise to a stay surrounded by nature. That's nice. Go on, book it. It's easy. Booking.com. Booking.yeah.
NFL football season is here, which means when you switch to Verizon, it feels like touchdown. Because you get NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube on us when you buy an eligible 5G phone on select unlimited plans, which means you can watch every out-of-market game every Sunday afternoon. And it's all on us. Now that's the Verizon way to kick off the NFL football season right. Switch and get NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube on us, only with Verizon.
Take flight.